Welcome back. You're watching Nation Tonight. Amid concerns over multiple maritime attacks in the Red Sea, External Affairs Minister Dr. S.Jaishankar is on a two-day visit to Iran. Now, Dr. Jaishankar met with his Iranian counterpart, Hossein Amirabdollahian, a short while back and discussed bilateral, regional and global issues. He also, in fact, met with the Supreme National Security Council of Iran a short while ago. Now, this visit, remember, comes a month after a drone attack on a ship near Indian waters that the United States blamed on Iran, a claim that India has not commented upon. The visit also comes after the recent Western airstrikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels. The Houthis have carried out scores of drone and missile strikes on the key international route through the Red Sea since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Many vessels have been rerouted from the Red Sea. India, too, has significantly stepped up its own maritime patrols in the Arabian Sea to maintain a deterrent presence after the string of attacks on the vessels. This visit by Dr. S. Jaishankar holds significance for India, not just economically, but strategically as well. With maritime security concerns and India's decision to not join the US-led coalition in the waters, why is this Iran visit important? Before I get my guests on the show, let's listen into what Dr. S. Jaishankar said a while back in Iran on the recent maritime attacks.
We've even seen some attacks in the vicinity of India. This is a matter of grave concern to the international community. Obviously, it also has a direct bearing on India's energy and economic interests. This fraud situation is not to the benefit of any party, and this must be clearly recognized.
All right, joining me on the broadcast to help us better understand this visit of the External Affairs Minister is Veena Sikri, former ambassador, and Pathikrit Payne, geopolitical analyst. Good evening, welcome, namaskar to the both of you. Veena Sikri, ji, I'd like to start with you. You know, this visit by the External Affairs Minister comes at a crucial time. We all know that. It comes at a time when geopolitical changes have happened after the Russia-Ukraine war, after the Israel-Hamas war, and amid the kind of multiple maritime attacks that we are seeing in the seas and the oceans. How do you really see this visit by an Indian foreign minister to Iran at this particular time?
Well, I think it's quite fair to analyze this visit in three different segments. I think one would be the bilateral segment, one would be the regional and the global segment. Now, on the bilateral segment, I think it's an important visit. It's a part of the very important civilizational trade and economic links that we have with Iran. And we've already seen the results on the bilateral side because External Affairs Minister met his counterpart from the Transport Ministry of Tehran, of the government of Tehran, and they have already signed a long-term agreement on the further development of Chabahar port. So I think this is already a very significant development. We all know that the Chabahar port was first, it was inaugurated in 2017, and since then it has served a valuable purpose for India, not only in relationship to Afghanistan, because all goods now can go via the Chabahar port to the western borders of Afghanistan and can bypass Pakistan completely, but the Chabahar port also has significance in terms of the international north-south transport corridor, which begins in Russia, St. Petersburg port, and then comes all the way down to Chabahar port and then to India. So I think this has been significant in itself that this development has taken place. Obviously, a lot of work would have gone into preparing for this signing of such a significant document, and that has been done. So that's very good. Then, of course, we've seen that External Affairs Minister has also met his counterpart, the Foreign Minister of Iran, and these talks are significant. And we come to not only in the bilateral context, but in the regional and global context. We do know, we're all aware what's happening in the Red Sea. We do know that UK and USA have been launching these attacks on the Houthis, and the Houthis have been attacking shipping in the Red Sea. So much so that this has a major potential for disruption of global trade, and now many companies, including international giants like Maersk, are moving their trade via the Cape of Good Hope via the Southern Africa, the tip of South Africa.
Yeah.
And this is going to add 10 to 12 days per ship. So obviously this is going to create a big problem.
Yeah.
But even more than that is the potential for widening the war, widening what is happening between Hamas, Israel, bringing in the Red Sea, bringing in global disruption, making it a regional war, if not a global war. We do know that External Affairs Minister had a telephonic discussion with Secretary of State, American Secretary of State Blinken on Friday before he left. So that itself would have been is significant because they would have exchanged views on External Affairs Minister's visit to Iran. We also know that today, as we speak, a short while ago, Prime Minister Modi had a telephonic discussion with President Putin of Russia. And again, the readout from that discussion is significant because it shows that a lot of issues were covered in that discussion. So I think the regional and global significance of External Affairs Minister's visit to Iran is very great and has to be taken seriously. It is being watched very carefully by all of us in India and across the world.
Can I also then ask you, Pathikrit, the fact that since this visit is crucial by the Indian Foreign Minister, can we expect the Indian government to urge some kind of, Iranian intervention when it comes to the Houthis?
Good evening, Shreya. See, I think the de-escalation aspect is very critical, not just for India, but for the whole of Middle East, to ensure that things don't go out of hand, and it can go out of hand. It is going out of hand gradually right now. Let me tell you, there are telltale signs that the Houthis are basically using drones which are of Iranian origin. But the good thing is that India has resisted and desisted from naming Iran. So I think the best country right now who can talk to Iran and initiate the process of de-escalation is invariably Iran. Without the de-escalation, there are several reasons why this de-escalation is very important. Without the de-escalation, the stability of the price of oil remains a concern. And this is an election year for India, so invariably that also is a very critical aspect. The other important thing is without de-escalation, without the Abraham Accord being signed, the India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor would not, materialize. And that is something also very important. There are indications, perhaps, that Iran is against the Abraham Accord or this corridor happening. So I think India would make it very clear that India does not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. But when it comes to India's maritime security and the security of the maritime routes, if there are things like this happening, then it is unfortunate. And perhaps when you would have these kind of discussions closed, I think strong words may also be. You rightly mentioned India did not join the US-led, Prosperity Guardian Maritime Initiative, a security initiative, but India has sent almost 12 warships, which is formidable. So I think India will make it very clear that it does have the wherewithal to actually do the needful on the Houthis, and it would be better if Iran does the needful. I think there is also another angle. There are two other angles because of which Iran might be interested in actually listening to India rather than any other country. Number one is there is also, as ma'am also mentioned about the international North-South transport corridor. Iran plays a very critical role in that transport corridor, and if it is told to them that if you allow the India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor to seamlessly happen, I think then this corridor equally will actually fructify, and it will be a win-win situation for both India and Russia and the whole of Middle East. The other important thing is that after the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018, Iran exited from it. India stopped taking oil from Iran, and that has not, did not serve purpose because eventually Iran started selling majority of its oil to China. China has a stranglehold on Iran. So I think some negotiation cannot be ruled out that India tells Iran that we are willing to start taking oil again, maybe in rupee. And that can be some kind of a way to ensure that some kind of tranquility and de-escalation happens in Middle East. Of course, the discussion between Prime Minister of India and President Putin would have included the fact that even if things don't, de-escalate beyond a point in Middle East, at least Indian ships should be taken, kept away from that. So I think it's a very complex situation right now. India has done the right thing by not taking sides, because de-escalating is more important than getting into this, good versus bad thing right now, which some others are doing. But as things stand right now, it is a reality. The Americans are escalating it. There are little option for them than to actually counter the Houthis. The Houthis are a proxy of somebody. As an independent analyst, it seems to me it is of the Iranians who are wary of getting into a direct confrontation, but has been using the Hezbollahs, the Houthis, and the Hamas. Where it could lead to, it's a very, very complex and a scary situation. So I think most importantly, de-escalation is the thing that India would talk about. Houthis will be mentioned. International North-South Transport Corridor and its integration with Jabbar Port. India using the bait of buying oil from Iran will be something that Iran may find it difficult to ignore and
important
look away from.
lessons that
So I think
India has learned over the years. Yeah, Ambassador Veena, like Pathikrit mentioned, crude oil, the China factor coming in. Back in 2018, India abided by the US sanctions, and we learned our lessons. We were winding down on oil imports from Iran, but clearly China gained out of that economically. Now, of course, Iran would also want to see a growing economy like India become one of its largest partners when it comes to crude oil, a growing demand here in the country. Also the kind of geopolitical and strategic influence that India has right now. But clearly, India has learnt its lessons when it comes to its relationship with Iran, isn't it? And now, of course, we're following a very independent foreign policy of our own when we're seeing this relationship being balanced quite strategically and carefully in this kind of a scenario.
Absolutely. I think one of the significant lessons one can draw from this visit, as I mentioned earlier, the world is looking to India to talk to Iran and bring about a solution, a reasonable exit from the potentially highly volatile and dangerous buildup in the Red Sea. I think that, Iran, on the face of it, will say, I've got nothing to do with it. But everybody knows that the drones are of Iranian origin. The Iranians have been supporting the Houthis all along, even in their conflict with Saudi Arabia. So obviously, speaking to Iran is vital. And speaking to Iran through interlocutor like External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, because the Indian and Iranian relationship is of long standing. We have great respect for each other. We have great interaction in the past, and we have great plans for the future. Energy is certainly one part of the mix, and India is now, I think, ready to bring in the Iranian energy purchasing in the mix. Although all this time we have depended on Russia a lot, but as you've said rightly, China has taken away all that India was already taking away, but we are now going to be in that. But look at USA, UK, all looking at India to bring a positive outcome of this visit. And I think this in itself is a kind of collective holding of the breath to see how Iran will respond to what the messages that India is carrying to them. I think that the dangers posed by the increasing attacks in the Red Sea, the very strong statements made, for example, by UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, saying they're going to continue with their attacks on the Houthis and they're going to make sure that shipping is safe, etc. It has in itself a potential for exacerbation and escalation of the conflict that scares one, that is really, really mind-boggling. So, but I think on one side is that threat, on the other is the way in which, whether it is Russia, whether it is USA, UK, and of course our own bilateral relations, we are all looking at this series of meetings in Tehran to see a positive outcome for the world economy, for our bilateral development, and certainly for bringing peace to the conflicts which are rearing their ugly heads in the Middle East, in Israel and Gaza, and ultimately, of course, in Europe as well.
All right. Ambassador Veena Sikri and Pathikrit Payne, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much to the both of you for joining us on the broadcast tonight and sharing your perspective on this crucial visit to Iran by India's External Affairs Minister. Namaskar.